Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're staring into the mirror, or maybe more like the black mirror of the screen. We've got some research here that's tackling something I think we all feel, but, we rarely put into words. It's about what happens to us, to our brains, our psychology, when we let the machine do the heavy lifting.
And we're not talking about the small stuff, right?
Yeah.
This isn't Spotify picking your next song or a spam filter catching an email.
Yeah.
That's just convenience.
Right. No, this is about a massive shift in strategic analysis. The sources we're looking at today argue that we're crossing a threshold. AI is moving from just handling tasks to handling judgment. And while that sounds great, super efficient, the research suggests we're losing something really vital.
It's the texture of the choice. That's a phrase that keeps coming up. And this really gets to the core theme for this deep dive, which is something called the human gap. It's this unsettling idea that while our decisions get faster, maybe more accurate, human consciousness is kind of evacuating the building.
We're getting the result, but losing the process. I think the best way to frame this is the GPS effect. We've all been there, right? You drive somewhere new using navigation. You get there, you're on time. But if someone asked you to draw a map of how you got there...
You couldn't do it, not a chance.
Exactly. Because you were never really there. You were just processing instructions, not the actual terrain.
You arrive at the destination, but you have no felt sense of the journey.
And the sources call this the rationality of absence.
It sounds a bit philosophical.
It does, but it's really just describing that phantom limb sensation. You know a calculation happened, you have the answer, but you didn't feel the gears turn in your own head.
So that void, that absence, it's not just empty space, it's a warning signal.
It is. When we stop doing the mental math, we stop really understanding the variables. And you don't understand the variables as are you actually making a decision? Or are you just, I don't know, observing it? Right. So let's peel this back, because I know a lot of people are probably thinking, so what? If the answer is right, who cares if I suffered through the math? But the research here suggests it matters a lot because we fundamentally misunderstand what a decision actually is.
We do. We tend to think of a decision as a single moment. The gavel bangs, the choice is made, done. But this framework we're looking at, it breaks a decision down into 4 distinct layers. And when you see it this way, you realize exactly what we're outsourcing.
Okay, let's walk through those layers. I think this structure is really helpful for, visualizing the problem.
So layer 1 is data. This is just pure information collection, sorting the spreadsheet, gathering the raw inputs. Then you have layer 2, which is analysis. This is where you connect the dots, pattern recognition, probability, that sort of thing.
And let's be honest, AI is already better at those 2 layers than any human. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't forget a row in a spreadsheet. It can spot patterns a human would just never see.
100%. In the world of structure and optimization, the machine wins. It creates a perfect map of the data, but then you hit the threshold. Layer 3 is choice.
Okay.
And this is different from analysis. Analysis says option A has a 60% chance of success. Option B has 40%. Choice is the actual act of committing to a path. It's the volition.
And the final layer?
Accountability.
Yeah.
This is the weight. It's the skin in the game. If the ship sinks, you're the captain who goes down with it.
Okay, so this is where the disconnect happens. The sources are warning that if we just hand over layers 1 and 2 entirely, if we just let the AI feed us the analysis, then layers 3 and 4, choice and accountability, they just start to rot. They become hollow.
Think about it. If you didn't wrestle with the data, if you didn't agonize over the patterns, can you really choose?
Or are you just approving?
Exactly.
Okay.
It just becomes a rubber stamp. You're looking at a screen that says recommendation, do X. And you click, okay.
The choice becomes passive approval.
And even worse, accountability becomes diffused. If the strategy fails, you don't feel like you made a bad call.
No, you feel like the algorithm gave you bad advice.
You become a spectator in your own decision. The model predicted a 90% success rate. Don't look at me.
That's the computer says no excuse, but for, billion-dollar corporate strategy.
Precisely. And this gets to a really evocative concept in the reading, which they call the phase jump.
I pause on this because it really clarified that sort of anxiety of making a big decision.
Right. So the idea is that data is linear. You can stack up facts higher and higher. That's what the AI does. It builds the perfect ramp.
It calculates the wind speed, checks the integrity, all of that.
Everything. But at the end of the day, to make a real decision, especially under uncertainty, you have to jump off the ramp. You have to leap into the air.
And the AI, It can't jump.
It cannot jump. It can simulate the jump, it can predict the trajectory, but it cannot take the leap. The danger is we get so used to the AI building this perfect ramp that we just stand at the edge waiting for it to push us.
And it never will.
So we freeze. Or, as you said, we just slide into that passive approval mode. We assume the ramp is the jump.
And this leads to some pretty serious risks that are starting to emerge.
It does. The first is that passive approval culture, where entire organizations just stop critically thinking because, well, the presentation slides the AI made look so polished.
The polish is a trap. I've absolutely seen this. An AI summarizes a meeting and everyone just nods along.
And no one asks, wait, did it miss the subtext in that conversation?
Because the summary looks so clean, so professional.
And that leads right to the second risk, diffused accountability, the blurring of responsibility. I mean, if you use an AI to draft an email, then another AI to summarize the reply, and a third to draft your counter, who's actually having the conversation.
The responsibility is just bouncing between servers, and the humans are just gateways.
It's a game of telephone with algorithms. But there's a third risk here that I found really worrying, especially for learning and development. They call it reduced experiential learning.
This goes back to the GPS thing, doesn't it?
It does, but applied to professional skills. If you're a junior lawyer, or a coder or a strategist, you learn by doing the grunt work. You learn the law by reading the boring cases.
That's the struggle. That's where the learning happens.
It is. The struggle of analyzing the data, the late nights, the confusion. That is the learning process. That's how you build intuition.
So if we use AI to skip the struggle, we just get the answer. But we haven't built the muscle.
We haven't walked the path. We don't have that felt sense of why it's the right answer. Intuition isn't magic, it's just pattern recognition that's built on years of friction.
And that word friction is central here, isn't it?
It is. Usually in tech, friction is the enemy. We want everything to be seamless, one click.
But this research argues that friction is actually a feature, not a bug.
It argues that friction is interference, and that interference is vital for cognition. It's like resistance training for the brain.
If you went to a gym where the weights lifted themselves, you wouldn't get stronger.
You'd atrophy. And mental atrophy is a real thing. Without the friction of conflicting ideas, without the sort of pain of not knowing the answer right away, our judgment muscles just wither.
That is a terrifying thought, that we are literally optimizing ourselves into incompetence. So if we accept that AI is going to dominate the calculation part, the data layers, what is actually left for us?
Well, the sources don't just leave us in despair. They outline 5 core human capabilities. These are the things that they argue cannot be externalized.
The firewalls, exactly.
These are the schools we need to be doubling down on right now.
Okay, let's run through them. This is the toolkit for staying relevant. Number 1 is frame setting.
This is the art of the question. An AI answers questions. Humans have to design them. So an AI can optimize the supply chain for speed, no problem. But a human has to stand there and ask, is our goal speed? Or is it resilience? Is it efficiency? Or is it human dignity for the workers?
The AI doesn't know what dignity is unless you frame it as a variable for it to solve.
Precisely. It's the difference between solving the puzzle and deciding which puzzle is worth solving in the first place.
Which leads right into number 2, value hierarchy design.
This is the heavy stuff. AI can weigh options, but humans have to determine the hierarchy of values. Safety is more important than speed. That's a moral judgment. It isn't derived from the data, it's imposed on the data.
Like in a self-driving car scenario or hospital triage, the algorithm can run the numbers, but it can't tell you which life is worth more.
It can't. It can't tell you which value is superior. That has to come from us. We have to dictate the hierarchy.
That brings us to number 3, risk ownership.
Right. And there's a key distinction here between calculating risk and owning risk. AI calculates. It generates probabilities.
But only a human can make a promise. I remember that line.
It's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you look someone in the eye, a client, a child, and say, I will take care of this, that's an ethical contract. And AI can say there's a 99% probability of success, but it can't make a promise. It can't put its reputation on the line.
Because it doesn't have one. Okay, number 4 is meaning attribution.
This one is about context. AI generates content, text, images, code, but humans generate meaning. Why are we doing this project? How does this fit into the story of our company or our lives? The AI sees the task. We see the narrative.
It's the difference between a list of facts and a story. The data is just noise until we decide what it means.
You got it.
Okay, and finally, number 5. This is the one that feels the most strange. Friction retention.
The ability to intentionally keep things difficult.
Yeah. I mean, why on earth would I want to make my life harder?
To keep your own internal OS from crashing. The idea is that we have to choose to keep friction in certain processes to maintain our moral weight, our cognitive fitness.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Think about firing someone or delivering bad news. You could automate that. You could have an AI write the perfect sterile email and schedule it to send at 5 p.m. on a Friday. It would be efficient.
But it would be sociopathic.
It would. We need that process to be hard. We need it to be slow and awkward. We need to look the person in the eye. That friction is what makes us human. If you remove the pain of that decision, you lose the humanity of the leader.
So it's cognitive training. We go to the gym to lift heavy things we don't need to lift, just to keep our bodies working. We need to do the same for our minds.
Exactly that. We need to lift heavy mental loads sometimes, even when there's an easier way. We have to choose the hard path to maintain the capability.
So to bring this all together, the argument is really for a shift in our identity. If AI takes over the calculation, what are we?
It's a massive shift. In the pre-AI world, being a leader meant being the decision maker. You were the one with the encyclopedia in your head.
Right. You held the knowledge. You were the database.
But now the machine holds the database. It processes faster, so your role has to shift. Your value isn't in the answer you provide. It's in the quality of the inquiry you can sustain. It's about not letting the conversation end with the first easy answer the AI gives you. It's holding the space for why and what if.
The material mentions this idea of health scan mode.
Yes, and this is key. We should stop looking at AI as an oracle, a source of truth, and start seeing it as a mirror.
A diagnostic tool for us.
Exactly. If I ask an AI a question and it gives me a biased or shallow answer, I shouldn't just get mad at the bot. I should look at my prompt. The output reflects the health of my own thinking. Did I ask a lazy question? Did I bake my own bias into it?
So the AI is showing us our own blind spots.
It's a feedback loop. And our job is to look at that reflection and say, okay, what does this tell me about how I'm framing the problem? We have to stay active. We have to keep wrestling with the machine to keep ourselves sharp.
It's a demanding way to look at it. We're not being replaced. We're being forced to evolve. From processors of data to architects of meaning.
Architects of meaning or guardians of the questions. I think that's the new job description.
This has been such a dense deep dive. As we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with the 3 open questions the source material poses at the end. They're not rhetorical. They're really practical challenges.
The first one is about education. Can judgment design actually be taught as a skill? If we're not teaching kids to memorize facts anymore, how do we teach them to design the frameworks for judgment?
That's critical. How do we teach them to read the stars if the GPS goes down?
The second is about our social fabric. What happens to accountability in a society of probabilistic suggestions? If a medical AI misses a diagnosis, whose fault is it? The doctors, the developers, the data set.
We just don't have a framework for that yet. And finally, the lifestyle question.
How much friction should we consciously preserve in our own lives? Should you turn off the GPS sometimes just to get lost? Should you write that difficult email from scratch just to feel the struggle of finding the right words?
I think that's the challenge for this week. Find one thing you could automate, one thing you could make easier, and just do it the hard way. See what it feels like. Just Benny.
Got Sue.
Don't blame us if you get lost on the way home.
I might just enjoy the scenery. Thanks for diving deep with us.
My pleasure.